guys talking about this greenhorn. Where's he at? I ain't seen him. You know,
He's
come
coming.
here talking about him, and he ain't here. Where is
Frankie's
he?
bringing him.
Right. Well, let me get it straight. So you're telling me you guys vouch for this guy? I don't know this guy.
Well,
I don't know him. Stevie who?
This is your day. Which is it gonna be? You choose. Wise choice. Now you're a good fella. For God.
Now you're in a real life.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Buzz Talk Live. Tonight I have one of the most interesting guests I've had on the show in a while. Rocco Morelli, a man cursed to relive his father's sins in organized crime, was able to change his life and triumph good over evil by becoming a minister and finding God. While in prison, he saw the light of Jesus Christ and became a mentor to his fellow inmates. And from there, he began a life of redemption and morality. After he served his time, he authored his book, Forget About It, his memoirs of being a convicted organized crime felon turned minister, and how he transformed other inmates to seek out the teachings of God and help them to change their ways. Today, Rocco collaborates with the Prison Fellowship Ministries and Operation Starting Line as a national speaker and spokesperson, bringing the message of the gospel to prisoners across America. So please chat and welcome Minister Rocco Morelli to Buzz Talk Live. How you doing, Minister Rocco Morelli?
Hey, George, Greg, good evening. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you? I tell you, you're in Orlando. Is that correct? You're in the
Orlando area.
Central
but,
Florida.
We just actually have recently moved to the Ocala area, but we I do a lot of the work all through Florida and, of course, throughout the U.S.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it's great to have you on the show. Like I said in my open, this is one of those shows that, you know, it's not that it's out of my realm. I mean, I do a lot of people in entertainment and all that, and music, and interesting. And I'm starting to get into interesting stories with people and their backgrounds, and I want to be as diversified as I can. And I think you're the most diversified person I had on the show. So because of your background,
I take that as a compliment.
no, please do.
Thank you.
You know, yes, no, it definitely is a compliment to you, because of what you did, and you turned your life around, you know, for the best, and finding Jesus Christ in your life and everything. And I think that's a very noble thing that you did. Finding your way through all the minutia of organized crime and you know, being part of that, the underworld and all that stuff. And we're going to get into that. That's going to be a pretty eye-opening experience, I guess, to a lot of viewers that are tuning in. But I want to start by, it's like, you know, they say when you're part of that life, you're basically, you grow up into it, and with the people that you associate yourself with. But in your case, it was more of your family, right? Is that how the story begins?
Correct. You know, I was born into it in a time when my mother's wishes and even my grandmother's was that, you know, from my father,
right,
none of us were supposed to have anything to do with La Cosa Nostra organized crime. So it really reverts back to my grandfather, Rocco, who was from Italy, but to his father, which was my great-grandfather,
right,
who was always referred to as Don Francesco Morelli from the region of Calabria and the Ndrangheta. If you go into history of the
Right.
mafia of that region at that time. So that was you're looking at now, I'm a fourth generation, and I talk about that, and even biblically, how the curse was passed down to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it is, it's a curse, and it's amazing how, being involved in that, and I'll put this up because, I mean, look at you, you're a young kid there. And I mean, at that point in your life, you are part of it, right? I mean, you were still a young boy.
No, you're looking at, older boy in the middle picture would be parochial school.
Yeah.
Started out, we most of the family we're Catholic. Mom was different. She was a Protestant. She, they allowed my dad to marry kind of outside the family. He was the youngest. But and then in the middle there, that's actually my first Holy Communion, actually.
Oh, wow.
In that background. And we went. It was my grandfather's backyard, and that's where we went right after church. Then, so that brings back a lot of memories. So that goes way back, back in the day, as we
back
say.
in the day. Where did you grow up, Rock? Where was it?
New Kensington, Pennsylvania. So it's a burg outside of Pittsburgh, 20 miles north on the Allegheny River.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people don't realize, if you study the history, Chicago was what we were labeled as, because you had Pittsburgh, little Chicago, but it was really the hub of the family was centered out of New Kensington, Pennsylvania, which ran the western panhandle of Western PA,
right,
Ohio, and West Virginia. Actually,
wow.
Part of the five families of New York, which would have been the Genovese family.
The Genovese family. Oh, wow. And all the not to go into the whole history of the mob, but all the families had different connections in different ways, right? Is that how it operates, and racketeering and the numbers?
It really operates as a organization. I say, you had the Roman Empire, so you had a Caesar. So you have a
right.
a Godfather, you have a Don, but they're actually the five families of the East Coast. Were established way back, and that whole thing, as you even see, the best depiction is really the Godfather movie that told
right.
the story.
Yeah, no, that was
yeah.
It's one of the best movies ever made. So growing up, I mean, you're right there, outside of Pittsburgh, and you're young, and your first experience or interaction with organized crime came at like a teenager, a younger age, or
yeah. By the time I was 15 years old, I was so enamored with it. But one of the things that I grew up with and seeing, was the political side. My grandfather was very involved in, but we had, our Godfather that would come to my grandfather's house. I won't say the names, but a congressman and senator. I mean, we were very, very, very politically connected in Pennsylvania as well. So you got to know these people, but it was not, you didn't realize. And then people would come from California and from New York, and my grandfather was a representative. He was the go-between between the families, actually, and so I didn't realize until I got a little bit older. But they pretty much educated me when the movie The Godfather came out. My grandfather and father actually took me to see the movie and then explained the facts of life to me. And at that point, it was like, you take the kid to the candy store, you say you can't have no candy, right? But now I got a taste for it. And so it was like, oh, okay, I knew that there was something up.
So they didn't really hide the life from you that much. They weren't like giving you.
To be aware.
They wanted you to be aware of that life, but they didn't propel you to do better than that, or
no. Well, they wanted me to go to college. This is not the life, but this is who you are. And if anybody would ever ask you at a certain, do you know any of these certain people, you would say,
right.
I know of them. Yeah, but you never would acknowledge
Right, you
that
never acknowledge.
your godfather was, was the head guy of the family. So,
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
these were people, and my grandfather was so well respected, and my father, that it was like that shadow was always over me. So I could do no wrong, actually, because they would know everything that I ever did. So, and that's how
And yeah, of course, you couldn't
somebody
hide
was
anything.
always watching out for little Rocco, because my grandfather was Rocco.
So then we go to this picture here. We talked about it earlier, and that's your dad. Is that your dad there on the left-hand side?
My dad on the left, with the shades on. I'm in, of course, the little rock in the middle, and that's my uncle. And that was the farm that they owned, and that I grew up on. I was outside the city, about 50 acres. So it's a good place to spend your weekend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I tell you, I can just imagine, being in that life and not knowing the future, what future lied ahead for you, and now where you are today. You weren't really a sort of quote unquote, you weren't seeking God in your life or anything like that, or your mom did all that, right?
My mom was the Christian and the praying mom, because she knew that she had a son that was subjected to this, and she understood the generational curses and so forth. But she, it was her prayers, but being introduced to the family and to other people, realizing she wanted me to be a doctor. Of course. But she also was the one that made sure I got all my music lessons when I was young, and tried to always promote me to be somebody more in a profession. My dad wanted me to be a lawyer. And so, I met the middle ground somewhere, but I actually was going to college, and I was to be a lawyer. Actually, the dean of the college was a family, and actually was a lawyer who went on to be a Pennsylvania Supreme Court judge. His son today is still a district attorney in Pittsburgh, in the county of Allegheny County. So, everything, I had everything set in life for me, but I made some wrong decisions.
You made some wrong decisions. Well, look, you make the wrong decisions in life, but you always see how you come out on the other end, and you came out great, and that's why you're sitting with me tonight here on the program, and you're telling your story, and soon to be, well, it is a book, and soon to be hopefully a Hollywood movie. But
that's in the making. If COVID didn't hit, we probably would have, but maybe it's a blessing in disguise.
There you go.
Now we might be a mini series for live streaming, is we're negotiating now. So it's all in God. God had a plan, and
absolutely.
Without getting into too much of the spiritual side and details, looking back in retrospect, I can see every step was ordered, and I had to go through what I had to go through to be who I am today. And I thank God that I survived, and I am here to share my story and testimony with you and many others. Now for all these years.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And it's amazing the crap that you got to go through to find out, oh, this is okay now, So the picture on the bottom there, that's kind of like in and around, well, the times of the 80s, there was it was called Pizzagate, and I think
the Pizza Connection, it was
Pizza Connection.
Yeah. And now I'm actually in the Pasta Palace that my partner in crimes that his mother and family owned. So that was where I would go probably most of the time to eat my lunch just about every day.
Right. That was a big thing back in the middle 80s when that happened. The drug scene, all that, and that was a lot of people. They were affected by that, and this is what we lived through in life, and because of that, that time, that's where your story sort of the end of your story sort of begins there and I'll let you tell the story about this person, Tony, that kind of set you up, right?
Yeah, Tony was deeply involved, and his history of his family was his father was a lieutenant in the syndicate in the crime family in Pittsburgh. So Tony grew up with that, and his father was actually arrested, was sentenced to a prison term, but and had actually got it was a kidney disease that he contracted. He died. His dad died young. He had to serve his time, and when he came out, I think that from what I understand, because my dad knew him very well, it affected him to where that he actually died at a very young age, which affected Tony. And so Tony grew up always wanted to be like his father and to carry on that baton and to be a wise guy.
Right.
So we were very close. We went to school together. We grew up together, and so this whole thing of ours, starts to evolve. Tony's deeply involved, and then of course, that's the trap that I fell into when I had everything going for me, where to politically even and so forth. So against my father, against my family's wishes, and it broke my mother's heart. So that's, we had a front, I own legitimate businesses, and I was involved politically. And
let's talk about that, because rewind a little bit there, because you were a constable at Penn State or something like that, right?
Well, Pennsylvania State Constable. So yeah, I always say, well,
Pennsylvania State Constable.
My alma mater was Penn State, but then I ended up, to the state pen. It was my my doctorate.
and then politics. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. You got your police, politics, and now you're part of the.
See, I was trying to stay out of it. As they say, when you're trying to get out, they pull you back.
Right. You experienced that firsthand.
Because, there was my mother praying. There was, I had legitimate businesses. We had the dry cleaners. We had, I had so when I went into as they say, constable, it was just to politically get onto another higher office, which was set up for me, that I was supposed to become an assistant auditor of the state of Pennsylvania. And so these were things that my father and grandfather had planned for me. And of course, they wanted me to go back to law school, finish my law degree, because the sky was the limit. I also owned a security agency with three other guys. We owned the third largest detective agency and security company in the city of Pittsburgh. It was a Busey detective agency. So, I had the legitimate businesses and I had everything going for it, but the allurement and the big money business was cocaine, So that was the pizza connection. That was our end. And in those days, we were tied into Philadelphia and of course, New York and the crime families. And if you do any kind of Google or YouTube, the pizza connection, you'll see the whole lineup. And that's where the feds, the state, and the local narcs, undercover agents, that's what they were doing. They were setting up sting operations because that was the only way really they were effective to be able to arrest the whole.
It was, I guess, it was just too the allure of the underworld was just too much for you, and because of the money that you were making with the whole drug scene and everything, you were trying to play it straight, right? But yet, it was just that lore and
well, being double-minded in a sense to, I can remember when, we had Vegas, but we had little Vegas right in my hometown. We had every vice that you wanted back in those days. And and so like movie stars, the Rat Pack and Frank Sinatra and people, the Candyman song was written for for the Candyman in my own hometown. Our Godfather was this. That song was written by when Sammy Davis sang it for the Candyman. He owned the candy store that was distributed the best candy in throughout the whole East Coast and even as far as the West Coast. So the Teamsters, the construction, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, the unions, the Teamster, everything was connected in those days to where, to be honest with you, it wasn't it wasn't a certain political party running things. It was really the family. The mob was running most of the politics in those days, and the Teamsters and so forth. I mean, the story of Jimmy Hoffa, it goes on and on and on and on. That's the way things were back in those days, and now it's kind of reverse role.
Yeah, now it's totally. I don't even know what the hell's going on now. It's just too many.
I don't think they know what's going on.
I don't know.
They ain't got a clue.
They don't got a clue.
At least we were organized criminals. I don't know what they're on.
Right, exactly. Yeah. At least you were organized. Nowadays it's I get the Russians are in, the Jamaicans. They're all.
Everybody's got a mafia.
Everybody's got a mafia.
And part of my ministry is I go and end up speaking in prisons and even juvenile prisons, and we got gangbangers and gangsters, youngest age that I minister to, 8 years old, who actually committed a murder, killed somebody as initiation to be in the gang. I mean, it's crazy.
No, it is crazy, and especially, and not to get too political, but especially with the borders and how these gangs are coming through the border, and
it's a problem.
It's a big problem, and whatever. But that's for another day.
That's why we need more prayer. We need God in our country.
I think so,
and we need to help. That's what community is all about. That's why I give back, because I know. Only by the grace of God that I'm alive today, and even in my book I write about 2 near-death experiences. And I know in my heart, my stories. If it wasn't for my praying mother and all her prayer sisters and family and my grandmother, I wouldn't be alive today, because there was too many supernatural things that happened that I shouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for the power of God. That I know somebody had to be praying. That when they say you have a guardian angel and angels are watching over you, I used to say that they had to be on the scene that night, because there was no logical other explanation that Rocco Morelli even survived.
So you tell the story on how that began for you, in the fact that it was just a visit to the doctor, right? And your doctor basically put you on the right path, and you didn't even know it at the time, right?
Well, in one of the things that take you back, and if get your audience or anyone wants to get the book and read it, I get into more of the details, of course. But I became an enforcer at the same time because of my background.
Right.
So I had to do certain things, and then and because of what they were grooming me to really become a made man, where in a sense was that I was in, but I was not. I was trying to not be in. I wanted to be on the other side. I liked the money. I wanted to be part of the action.
Right.
But there was a turning point that I wanted actually to be totally legit and under the radar, and there's where the crossover came, because of Tony, because of the sting operation. Then I was set up, and so everything changed, and so my whole life became a saga, to where I had to figure out. I was trying to figure out how I can get out of the indictments and the arrest and avoid prison. And the more I tried to do that, the deeper I got.
The deeper you got. And when you saw the light, so to speak, it was at an event that you brought. Tell the story about with Tony or something.
See, going back to the doc, Doc would always put me back together. So no matter if I was in a fight or a shootout
Right.
or whatever I went through, and car accidents. I mean, in those days, there was time. One story I actually, had to jump out of my car, and I mean, there was just a lot of things that I did that I'm not proud of. So Frank would always, his mother, my grandmother, and mother, they were all part of this Christian network of prayer and going to. Even back in the day when we had a faith healer by the name of Catherine Kuhlman in Pittsburgh at the Presbyterian Church, they were all part of that. They were part of the revivals. I always say, God's really set me up because it was inevitable that I had everybody praying for me and my family. And so when I would go to Frank, he would say, "Hey, Rock, here, can I pray for you before you leave?" I say, "Yeah, sure, Frank, out of respect." I mean, the guy was a miracle himself. I won't get into that detail, but there was a guy that on his honeymoon, his wife was killed in a car accident, and he was more or less in a wheelchair like a paraplegic. And because of his mother's prayers over the years, he actually received the healing and walked out of that wheelchair and became a doctor. So Frank was a healer in a sense that not only is a physician, but he knew the power of prayer because of his mother. Yeah, and that's who was praying for me. All the whole network. So Frank would always pray for me, and he gave me these gospel tickets, and said, "Look, I know what you're going through, but he says you should come up to the Holiday Inn and see this guy because he used to work for Jimmy Hoffa." Well, that got my attention, And he says he has a story that I think you could relate to. And so I took the tickets, but it was at the time that I was under indictment. I'm presented by the mob boss, comes to me and says, "We know that Tony's the CI, the confidential informant." So I knew that. He said, "He's your problem, and you have to take him out." So my assignment, I was supposed to whack Tony. Right. And then that's when I was going to be, really. And
then you're going to be made there. Yeah.
And be made.
Right.
So I came up with an alibi. My alibi was I'm taking Tony to this gospel meeting. My mom and everybody will be happy, but that was going to be my alibi. And that was right afterwards that I was going to whack Tony.
Wow. But, I don't know. Maybe you can clear things up here because I always thought that once you're in that life, you don't get out of that life. And in the respect of like, trying to be clean or trying to be, mainstream and not involved in that life anymore. Is that true? Or is there a way out?
There is a way out. And there's too many of my friends and guys that I still minister to and that are part of what we'll share here in a little bit. It's called Goodfellas, that you saw the earlier clip that everyone was watching. Yeah. That it all comes down to, do you become an informant? If you don't snitch, if you don't turn, if you do the time, and you shut your mouth, and you go on with your life. Yeah. Then there's circumstances that prevail. So there's too many of us that have come out of the life that actually have renounced the mafia, that have broken away from this Italian thing of ours and the curse, that are today here to talk about it. So it's not like we're not saying, "Hey, so-and-so and so-and-so, name and name." Right, and, sure. No. Which is what the feds, the FBI, it's what they wanted us to do. Right, exactly. And some did and some didn't. I have guys that got put in a corner and, for example, would say, "Okay, well, Tony, what he did was wrong, but there was a way that we were able even to save Tony." And that pretty much was when we went before the grand jury. They didn't get the evidence and they didn't get the testimony that they wanted. And so Tony committed perjury. Tony said that everything he said about me was just made up to save himself. Right. So in a long story short, you have the right attorneys, you have the right people. And if you do the right thing, there's still that chance. And that story's in a book. There was still, very close to where I could have still been taken out because of what Tony had done. And then finding God, So that night, you know, God set me up because I was only looking for the alibi and then fulfill the orders of the mob boss to
Wow.
whack Tony.
Wow.
So he has a sense of humor, I say.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I mean, so you did how many years did you do?
I was facing 20 years, and then
Wow.
with the
Wow.
and there was a lot of favor, and I won't get into the details on that, but you got to remember now I'm out during this time, so my salvation experience that night when I go to the altar is that I no longer am gonna do what they asked me to do.
Right.
And I tell Tony, I says, you know, I kiss him on both cheeks. I says, you better get up there and let that man pray for, because the man who was the preacher that night had worked for the Teamsters and Jimmy Hoffa, and his story was he was about to kill his own attorney, but he had a praying wife and mother too. And so his story was
wow.
hit me head on that night. He was like, you know, God's got a plan for your life. I never forget when he said the shortest verse in the Bible was Jesus wept, and then all of a sudden tears are coming down my eyes. But
Wow.
he said, there's a guy, a young man here tonight that if you do what you're going to do, you're going to end up not only with the consequences, but you're never going to find the peace that you want, and you're going to end up in hell. And I knew that was me. And so when he had the invitation, he says, "Are any real men here tonight that are willing to stand for Jesus and give their heart to him and change their life and turn it around? Would you come forward?" And is that like somebody? I was in a front row. They brought us into the front row, and there was 1,000
Really?
people there at that
Wow.
meeting that night.
Wow.
And I had Tony, and I had another guy that was going to assist me afterwards in getting rid of Tony. And them two are nervous as everything. But when I went forward, it's like somebody just threw me out and pulled me out of that seat, and I went with tears in my eyes. And I said to the guy, I said, "Can God do for me what he did for you? Because you don't know what I'm about to do, and I'm either going to go to prison
Right.
for the rest of my life, or I'm going to be killed myself." And then the guy whispered over to me, because they knew I had already been indicted. I was on the news. I mean, all the way to Chicago. I mean, I used to have they call them paparazzi, but I had journalists and reporters follow me, and of course,
Is that right?
I was under surveillance 24/7, me and the family in those days, by the feds and the whole organized crime division in Pennsylvania.
Sure.
So
you were fighting both sides.
fighting both sides, and I was some of the guys called me on the prosecution side that I was a master manipulator, because I ran them around in circles. And what we know, the CIA created disinformation. Well, the mob also knew how. We also knew how to find out if you were a snitch too. That was called disinformation. So I gave them a lot of that kind of rhetoric when I was arrested, just to see how it would come around full circle. And that's how we knew Tony was the snitch as well. So, but by the grace of God, they're otherwise they'll go and I wouldn't be here tonight.
And I'll tell you, I guess that meeting or event that you received the grace of God, and
big time,
without you even knowing it, my friend.
God had a different plan. That's what I always say.
God had a different plan for you, and positioning you in the front row, and having that fellow, that was connected with Jimmy Hoffa and all that. I mean, it's all a chain, and you were set up.
You were by design, not a coincidence.
Yeah, right. You were set up all right. You were set up in a good way,
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. I mean, really. So tell me now, you're spreading the word in prison. So you're doing your time, and you received this grace, and you wanted to basically share it with other prisoners, but yet those prisoners, they're not really receptive. I mean, how did you coerce them to?
There was a difference, though, because I was one of them. The ministry actually began inside a prison. I mean, to the point where I was a high-profile organized crime guy. You know, when I came on the inside, I had everybody and their uncle wanted to be my bodyguard, work for me.
Right, right,
I'll
right.
do you favors. All you got to do is buy me some squares. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
the gamblers, the druggies, everybody came to me because, and I had, you know, I had clout, I had money, and I had favor. I even had, you know, the guards looking out for me, everybody. I mean, it was like like you see in a movie, a wise guy. And I mean, when
Is
when
that
I was
right?
taken into custody, my father and the right people make the phone calls, and all of a sudden I got guards coming to me and saying, "Hey, don't worry, you know, the sheriff called me or so and so called me, and you know, and that you're going to make sure you'll be fine here, and you know, we're going to put you in with some of your homies, you know, well I call them homies, but your bombardis, we used to say,
Your
you
buddies,
know,
yeah,
so and so's here, he's on block 15, and you know, and so it was like I didn't want that anymore, but I understood where I was in the life, and so I had to also even play that role. But I used that to my advantage because they would watch me,
exactly.
and what you
Yes.
see there was that Bible and everything was real. I think in my cell I would be on my knees when the chapel opened up, and then I started having Bible studies, and then guys would start coming to me, and I start sharing with them,
Interesting.
and they wanted, you know, they were all hurting souls and had different stories, but I was
Wow.
open to say, hey, come on, you know, let's talk, let's pray, let's see what let's see what the Bible has to say about this. So I became that minister on the inside, and then God began to use me, and then of course it carried
Sure.
on when I
Sure.
was
Yeah.
released.
No, I mean, and just to, you know, to preach the word, and being new yourself to you know, to this whole new world that you're, you know, looking to Jesus and receiving his grace, and now you're passing this on to your fellow inmates that, you know, you're an inmate yourself, and it's
Yeah.
but like you said, you know, you had the ace in your hand because you're one of them, and you were a trusted figure in behind bars, where, you know, it made you, it was easy for you to bring them to the good, and that's what you did there.
Because you cannot con a con, and they know the real deal. You know, I used to
Exactly.
tell,
Exactly. You
you know,
can't
I had
con a
good
con.
mentors too. The guy, brother, I call him Brother Steve, but the guy who led me to the Lord that night became a mentor. He was part of, worked with a TV ministry called Cornerstone Television in those days. So
Oh,
I
okay.
was surrounded with a lot of ministers and influential people, including Dr. Frank, that would send people to me. He would send me Bibles. He would, in my visitation list was like, they're saying, okay, are you kidding me? You got everybody wanting to come see you. You know, you're like a celebrity. And I would
Right.
just say, well, it must be God, because I needed that, but I had that support on the inside.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Sure.
you know,
Wow.
it made it where, um, that's what I needed during the years that I served, and God used that, and from
Amazing. This is
that
amazing.
time till I was released, and when I got out, the doors were wide open. It's like, you know, when I finally went, and one of my mentors, of course, was Chuck Colson, Prison Fellowship Ministries. When I went to work for Chuck, you know, his story, you know, high profile with Watergate and Nixon, and you know, of course, was able to start the biggest prison ministry that's carried on in the world today. Um, but that was, you know, the same type of cloud and opening doors was something that only God could do. And
Mm.
if he can take somebody like him, and then there I am so many years later, actually, you know, being an affiliate and working for Chuck Colson's ministry. So God knew what he
Incredible.
was doing. It's been a journey, and I've been going into prisons
Ever since.
now for almost 30 years,
That's crazy. Yeah.
all around the world, not just United States, Canada, and other countries. And
That's
we're
crazy.
slowed down a little bit with this whole COVID thing, but you
Sure.
know, that's starting to break out, and we're getting back to what we
And
used to
is it
do. And
true
then
what they
without it,
say about prisoners with COVID and everything? How COVID is affecting the prisoners?
well, we've lost, you know, and some of the guys that I've known that were long time, the older guys in prison, um, it affected more so, and just like it did the elderly
Right.
population
Right.
overall. But one of the things that we had to encounter was that, yeah, we had to practice social distancing for a while. We couldn't even go in, but between staff and guards and all of us, that's how the COVID was getting in, because if you take the factor that, when family would come to visit, it was either family members or somebody that works in the prison coming from the outside in, bring it to them. Otherwise,
Yeah.
they were already in lockdown and a quarantine that, if they didn't need none of us coming in, they probably would have had no exposure hardly, compared, to be honest. So you kind of look at it and say they were already in a lockdown. We're the ones that came and gave
Right.
it to them in many cases. So thank God. I mean, many of us were spared, but we lost a lot of people on both sides. The
Yeah,
front
sure.
line and the inmates as well. And so I think everybody's been affected or knows somebody that it's hit them pretty hard, that they've lost a loved one or a
Sure,
friend or somebody
sure.
they know.
You have a special person in your life, and your wife Christine, and so how did she come into your life, and was she was she waiting for you on the outside? All these. I mean,
She wouldn't have gave me the time of day in my old life. I met her when I was my first year as a ordained pastor in ministry, and I was traveling and speaking with the Full Gospel businessmen. They used to have that. That's what actually that banquet I went to that night. In those days, it was a dairy farmer from California, Demas Shakarian, started a ministry called Full Gospel Businessmen. It was about 50 years ago, actually.
Wow.
It was very successful, very wealthy, and it was a ministry outside the church, because he figured men could reach more men in the business world,
Right.
in the community, than
Right.
some churches could, because a lot of guys, they weren't going to go to church, and like me in those days. And that's where I found Christ in the light that night. So I became one of their speakers as well. And so I was on a circuit in Du Bois, Pennsylvania, about 2 hours north of Pittsburgh, and I was their speaker that night. And my wife was there with her father, who was one of the officers of the Full Gospel Businessman, and the businessman himself. And so that's where it began.
So when you
miracle, actually.
Yeah, when you speak to other prisoners, and you basically you tell your story of I guess the condensed story of and then you get into, I mean, how does that all work? Because you just can't preach, right? You have to set it up with a story, and then you Christ enters the conversation. How does that all happen?
I always share the story, the testimony of who, it's kind of in the three part of who I was, where I came from, what I did, and how
I see.
Came out of that
Right,
lifestyle,
right.
and found redemption, because I was redeemed, but I had to go through all that stuff to get where I am today.
Sure.
So I always share what I had who I was, of course, but it's more so who I am today, only because of Christ in me. If it wasn't for the power of God and that today that the Holy Spirit lives in me to use me the way He does,
right,
I would have never. If He had told me years ago that I was going to be a preacher, that probably would have been enough for me to whack you in those days. I'd have said you're crazy. So that's the kind of person. It would be like, you kidding? You talking to me? And I was like,
yeah,
and that was, but see, that was my mother's really dream and prayer for me. Not just when I look back at that, she said that she always wanted me to be a doctor. So now I look at it that with
you're
theology,
a doctor, right?
I went to Bible school, and I'm close to having a doctorate, probably a doctorate in theology more so today, as in the schooling and everything, because I've gone to seminary and all that. But
sure,
it's that foundation was there, and that seed was planted way back with her mother and so forth. Yeah. And so, now my mom's 93 and wow. She's not in good health, and my father's 92, and to be honest with you, he's in a hospital right now. But we're he's still he still has his mind. His body's getting weaker, but I see miracle after miracle that I go into the hospitals and I'm sharing with nurses and doctors and ministering and going in other patients' rooms that people to say, hey, can you go down there and pray for that lady over there? You know, so
yeah.
that's the kind of person that I am today. I'm just open that I'm just so thankful that God spared my life and what he did it for me, that any way I can give back to help others, that's what I believe is my true calling. And it probably was from the beginning of time, but I had to go down that road to get where I'm at today.
Sure.
That's
What,
the way it is.
Rocco, what's your relationship with your dad ever since you kind of, cleaned up your act, so to speak? I mean, your dad, back when in the heyday of when all this happened in your life, and then, how did that all happen? I mean, how did that all close as far as your relation?
Well, my dad was always my hero. I just had a plaque made for him for Father's Day that says, "Dad, my forever hero." My dad was a Korean War veteran. My dad was a professional boxer in the Army.
Oh wow, okay.
My dad was a tough guy, but
Sure.
a nice guy. He's
Right.
the kind of guy just like taught me the same way. It's like I'm not looking for trouble, but I'm not going to run from it either.
No, of course not.
And so that's how we grew up. But Dad was a hard worker. We had we had family businesses, and Dad got involved in politics and things, but he always wanted more for me, and so did my mom, and of course, and so
that's good.
I'm thankful because I had no siblings, and so they did everything to say that they sacrificed their life to try to give me that better life, and it was tough because there came a time where there were people that, because I could have been taken out, I could have been killed by the family, but it was my father and grandfather and other people that there was intervention. There was God's intervention, but also the favor of my grandfather and family, not realizing that I was kind of untouchable in a sense where it'd be like, you can't touch a hair on his head because of what his grandfather did, and then there's going to be consequences to all of you if you take out the grandson and the son. And
I see.
So I learned these things later, but we wanted out of it. I mean, we were already removed to where my grandfather is older. My dad doesn't need this aggravation. So when I came to the realization what I put my family through, that was, I gotta make up for it. And to this day, I don't know if it was more out of guilt. Sometimes my wife and other people say, well, what you do for your father is over and above, and it is true. But I believe, see, the fifth commandment it says, honor thy father and thy mother. Now, there's the only place in the Bible, because there's a little thing people forget the rest of that parable or the rest of the sentence. It says, and those who do will be honored, will be satisfied with long life. It's the only promise in the Bible that says if you honor your father and your mother, that you'll have long life. In other words, you'll be blessed in your life.
Interesting.
And that's a saying that we have honor, but it's surprising where I get doctors and what I do. They'll tell me, man, thank you for you're such a blessing what you do for your parents, and especially they see me now with my father and taking care of him in the hospital and going there every day, and I'll say, well, what do you mean? That's what you're supposed to do, right? They say, well, no, not many people do what you do. And I'm thinking to myself, how can you not?
Yeah,
but
sure.
A lot of people don't today. I mean,
well, you know what? Your mother is an angel, because she put you on the right track, and and here you are. I want to talk. I have a video I want to show of a Tony Ferrantino. Is it that was a person that you knew or know?
Well, Big Tony was a guy that I mentored for probably about 15 years out of his 20+ year sentence at the Polk State Institution in Florida, or ministry is present there today, and I have volunteers. And Tony was a guy, he'd never go to a chapel service, but we started doing yard events on the outside. We would bring in big music and bands, and I would be the speaker and bring other people in to speak. Tony heard the message and came up to me afterwards and did the same thing. He came to and says, I want to follow that same Jesus, and prayed for him.
Interesting.
And he says, when you're here the next time in that chapel, I'm only coming because you're going to be there. And I said, no, you're coming
Right.
because God is there.
That's right.
And now he lives in you and you have a purpose. And so Tony
That's right.
became one of the best preachers on the inside. And today he's out and has his own ministry in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, wow. All right. Good for Tony. Let's watch Tony here. It's a clip from a video, I guess a lengthy video of that I clipped this from, but interaction with Tony and how he appreciated what you did. Here we go.
When I was a kid, I didn't want to be a fireman, a cop, or a lawyer. I wanted to be a gangster. And when I was 18 years old, I went to prison. I spent 28 years incarcerated. And that was the problem. Everybody thinks drugs is just a symptom, man. It's the lifestyle. I had a dream when I was in prison that when I got out, I was going to give back for all I took out. I'm staying busy 7 days a week. I cry about it, but it's the only thing that keeps me from going back. It would be easy for me to go back to the old life. Yeah. And I've forgiven a lot of people, but I don't know whether I forgave myself.
And I'm here to tell you, my friend, Jesus wants to set you free.
Yes.
Right now.
I said, maybe, you know what? Maybe this is real. You know, maybe there is something to this. Rocco couldn't have called at a better time.
Wow. I'll tell you, a lot of tears, grown men crying, but I'm sure it makes you feel good, you know, that the part you played in saving this person. And you know, because like you said, you know, he didn't know anything about, you know, with taking the Lord in and making room for that in his heart. But you know, you and amongst other people showed him the right way.
Yeah, and I give God the glory. You know, we show that same love that He gave to us, and you know, I always say, you know, who would be willing to die for you or me? But He, you know, Jesus did, and whether people want to believe that or not, it's, you know, it's not just a story or a fable. It's you know, that's the only empty grave, and He rose, and God had a plan, and that's how we come to redemption ourselves. It's just simple faith is what it is, but you have to be able to open your heart to receive Him too. That you're going to say, "Hey, Lord." Repentance means you do a 180 is what I tell guys. You know, you do a turnaround. You say, "That's it." Like I said, no more mob, no more drugs,
right?
No more. I'm done. And you turn around and you keep, and you don't look back. You keep going.
But
and
that's
have temptation.
But
There's
for some
roadblocks.
Rocco, for some, that's really hard to do because it's a choice. It's like the beginning when we opened up this program, you know, with the Bible and the gun. It's a choice, and you know, the choice that you never want to make because it's like, you know, I you know, it's a really, really tough choice that for some to make and to keep
like 50,
and to keep
50-50 in one sense, right? You know, which way I you know.
You either die
as a bookie that I was. The odds are, you know, I always say, what do you got to lose?
Right.
Try it, because you know my way, which is His way, not my way, God's way, is that I live a life. I have peace now in my life. I didn't have peace in those days.
Right. You're always looking over your shoulder. You're always looking over your shoulder. Yeah.
Now I sleep good at nighttime, but you know, the thing is that. My bet is that when I die, I have eternal life and I go to a better place. But the other way was, if you know, I believe there is an eternal hell too. I mean, you get a choice. You know, it's total surrender. You're going to live. You know, this body is temporary, and we're all born to die. And the question is, if we are eternal beings, where do we go? Where do we live? And I say, everybody says, well, this is hell here on earth. I says, well. It could be a little taste of it, but if you really look at testimonies and you read the Bible, how would you like to spend an eternity in a real living hell, separated from God and the people that you love?
That's right. That's right.
So I think my ways, I'd rather gamble. If I was still taking bets, I bet on my ways, following
Always bet on God.
Jesus as the way, the truth, and the life.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I have another video here, but I want to give it a proper setup because it was a person, Archie Williams, and he was wrongly accused. He was incarcerated.
Right.
And this person, did you know Archie, or did you?
Well, the way we got to know Archie was as a group. When I was on staff with Prison Fellowship in what we called Operation Starting Line, we, over a period of about 10 years, we would do a lot of programs in ministry at Angola Prison in Louisiana, where Archie was incarcerated. Actually, he was had a life prison sentence.
Oh boy!
And so one of the things about that prison, it was at one time the worst prison in the United States. I mean, there were killings, and the prisoners ran the prison.
Oh,
and the governor appointed a Baptist preacher by the name of Burl Cain, and he took over as the warden, and he turned that prison into a sanctuary of ministers and ministries, and became a prison to where you could even bring your wife or women and volunteers and walk down the hallways and not even get the cat calls anymore. So we spent a lot of time in that prison. Matter of fact, Burl back then personally gave me the key to the prison. And
look at that!
The old Angola prison.
That's the old key of the Angola.
The old cells.
Oh wow! Look at that.
And so what he said was, you can come back here and preach in my prison anytime you want, and we would go back and take teams. They could even have a rodeo there. We'd have outdoor programs, and it became a great place where we saw men's lives change and miracles happen time and time again. And that's where Archie was. So he was there. You get to meet somebody, you get, people come up, you pray for them, you shake their hands and all that. And I mean, I've met thousands and thousands of inmates over the years, and people in churches and everywhere. But it's quite a story.
This man has an incredible story himself, and because he was wrongly accused, and he also has a talent of singing, and he was on America's Got Talent of all things, and I have a clip of his story and a little bit of his performance. So let's take a look.
On the morning of December the 9th of 1982, a 30-year-old white woman was raped and stabbed in her home. I was arrested on January the 4th. I couldn't believe it was really happening. I knew I was innocent. I didn't commit a crime. But being a poor black kid, I didn't have the economic ability to fight the state of Louisiana. At the trial, none of the fingerprints at the scene matched mine. 3 people testified that I was at home, but they wanted somebody to pay. I was sentenced to life in 80 years without the possibility of parole or probation. I was sent to Angola State Penitentiary. It was classified as the bloodiest prison in the United States. You had a choice to either be strong or weak, because you will be tried and tested. Days turned into weeks, into months, into years, and into decades.
Wow, Archie, well, I'm so sorry you had to go through what you went through, but thank God the right thing happened and you're out.
Thank you. I can't lie. No more of your darkness. All my pictures seem to fade to black and white. I'm going tired, and time stands still before me. frozen here on the ladders of my life. Don't let the sun go down on me. Although I search myself, there's always someone else I see. I'm just another fraction of your life to wander free. But losing everything is like the sun going down.
I would never ever listen to that song in the same way ever again after you sang that. It took on a whole different meaning for me. And you're a very, very courageous person.
Wow, that was great. I'll tell you, when I was putting that together and just playing, it's really touching because here's a guy wrongly accused all those years and sitting in his cell. I can just imagine what he's going through in his mind and trying to find everything possible to get himself out of there and get him free and just to have the spirit within himself and that by itself is his strength to carry on and there he is on the stage. America's Got who the hell thought of that, right?
It's an amazing story, and when
it really
I heard
is.
that he was released and then was going to be on, and of course we got to watch that night. I mean, I was in tears because those
I
guys,
can just imagine. Sure,
God's got treasures locked up all over the country in prisons like that, and he was a guy that participated in the chapel program, sang in the choir, and I mean, when we go into these prisons, a lot of times we don't bring in our own music because there is so much talent locked up behind prison walls that'll blow your mind, just like Archie.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And they're giving back. That prison actually, they have a seminary, and we're starting to do it was a carryover. It started here in Florida in some of our prisons, where they raise up their own pastors that are inmates.
Really?
And they have there's 5 big chapels. That's a community in itself, Angola. It's on the edge of the bayou, the swamps there. I mean, the reason most people never escape from Angola because you'd have to go through the swamps.
Yeah, you got to go through the swamps.
Survive the alligators. And the snakes.
Exactly.
But an amazing place. But you'd see God's grace, and when you go there, it's not what you would think. And a lot of the volunteers that we would take over the years to a lot of the prisons, but especially Angola, it was a very special place. They'd say, man, God's been here all along. It's not like that we bring God to them. God's already there. We're just coming
exactly.
to,
exactly.
Is
spread the good word. To spread the good word. Yeah. No. I mean, and I'll put this up. This is a couple other fellas, good fellas, and they turned to God fellas, and that's how the story is continuing with the associates that you have working with you alongside of you and spreading the good word of Jesus Christ, and with that you have you authored a book, right? And the book is forget about it. Yeah. So people can find that on your website or on Amazon, right? Or wherever books are sold.
Yeah, Amazon, or go to our bookstore. And if you get it on our website there, and on the put a little request in, I even sign copies and make them.
Oh, that's awesome.
People. So, but it's been distributed in most of the prisons, and continue on. We're probably going to do a sequel and another book that'll be in parallel, hopefully, with the movie or miniseries, whichever way that we end up.
So talk to me about this try to pitch it to me. This movie that you're thinking of doing, is this going to be part of like a mini series, or is it just a
Well,
almost like
that evolved out of the COVID situation. You know, my screenwriter, and I have a producer and a lot of good friends. I you know, I don't like to mention a lot of names,
No.
but you know, the affiliations with over time.
Sure.
With people like Todd and entertainment lawyers, people that have you know, the Passion of the Christ and Mel Gibson and so forth. And so I've been in that, and I am in that circle. And so, you know, everything was set, and then bam, I guess you know, God has another plan. So we just put everything on hold, of course. You know, because for the longest time nothing was getting produced or shot, of course, and
Sure,
it's
yeah.
happening now. But one of the things that's also happening is we have a whole paradigm shift happening where we're getting a lot of the exposure in Florida. So I work with some of the studios, and
that's great.
a lot of stuff's transferring over to Florida, and of course it has been in Georgia and other places where they're shooting more films. So a lot of the industry is changing, going to Texas, coming to Florida.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to retrofit it now to where what was said to me, they said, you know, in one way it's much better to where you know, you take a 2-hour feature film, and sometimes they condense them to 90 minutes, but let's just say a 2-hour feature film, you're going to get excerpts, and just like you do right now with,
sure.
you know, we're hearing little bits and pieces.
Sure.
But if we could do a 1-hour miniseries,
Yeah. I could see it
be
being
nice
a
is
mini
that
series. Yeah.
I get to share more of what I've been doing now since that time too. So
Yeah.
more or less, where it could be nice to show the preacher in action, the mafia preacher
Yeah.
now going into prisons, and what we're able to do to make a difference.
I could see this being like a version of The Sopranos, but you know, in a different way. You know,
different twist. Yeah.
yeah. No, definitely. I could definitely see this. You know, doing something here, and
You know, the real good fellows that Ray Liotta, because when we started this years ago, we always thought we'd have we talked to Ray about, you know, playing me actually back in the day, but that never happened. But it was set up because you know, the real Henry Hill that Ray portrayed in Goodfellas.
Right.
I was a teenager already having that taste of the life when he used to come to Pittsburgh to get his drugs. So you know, I was also a musician. I used to play at the age of 15. I had I was an entertainer and played in all the mob clubs.
Oh, is that right?
I was a union musician at the age of 15, and
oh wow,
and doing Frank Sinatra and everything, you know, my way back then. So I got to meet the Henry Hill.
Oh
and
wow.
Later on, Discovery had come to us when I was out there, and Henry was starting to do some things in ministry. You know, he did change his life. He was out of the witness protection program, and we were going to do, because when I started the Goodfellas for God, they heard about it. He heard about it, so they were going to we were going to do a show and a series together. And unfortunately, one morning, get the phone call, and it's all on the news that Henry Hill died from a heart attack.
Oh Jesus!
And so that never happened. Otherwise,
wow.
we were going to do a you know,
that would have been perfect. That would have been
story
perfect
for on Discover Channel. But you never know, you know, and that's the sad part, that sometimes in that life, you know. But thank God that he redeemed his life too, and it was changed, that he had to go through.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that was one hell of a situation too. The Lufthansa heist that happened at JFK. Yeah. That was that whole time period there, and that movie was based on that and that time.
Absolutely.
But you know, I think that, you know, that the choices that you made later in life, it's paying off in dividends for you now. Big time, Rocco, and again, I can't stress it enough how much your mother is an angel, you know, because without her praying for you and showing you the way, you know, who knows, this interview wouldn't have happened, and you know, a lot of things, you know, just
a lot of things would have happened. Great mom love my mom, love my dad, good family. You know,
Absolutely.
people say, can you, there's some things I'd like to been able to change, and obviously that I wouldn't have had to go through, but, you know, God knew, and I thank God that I survived. I'm here, and now able to give back and hopefully make a difference before
Absolutely.
that day comes, you know.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Well, I tell you, Rocco, I can't thank you enough for being my guest here on Buzz Talk Live. It was a great learning experience for me, and hopefully for the viewers out there that tuned in. And again, you know, this lives on YouTube, so you know they'll reach it there, and any way that they can support you and what you do, reach out to Rocco on his website, roccomorelli.org. And you know, you could see you know, and keep up with his life and his ministries right there on his website. And I tell you, Rocco, thank you so much again, and hopefully your dad recovers well in the hospital, and wish him all the best there too. And your wife, thank her for me. And I don't know, any last words?
well, thank you for allowing me to share my story, and hopefully that if it was just for one and touch somebody's life. Yeah, go to my website. If you know, people email me at times, and
Sure.
you know, I get a lot of different prayer requests. You know, I would be surprised at how many people say, "Can you go visit my loved one or write a letter or something?"
Yeah.
You know, we do what we can, but I'm involved in a large network. That's the nice thing that is one of the blessings and gifts that I have, that we have people all over the country.
You grew it out. You grew the network out, so this way you have other ministers that
can reach out,
Sure.
and if somebody has a need. But I'm that. I've learned one thing from my mother: the power of prayer. So I'm that praying, you know, guy now. I'm the praying son. I'm the praying husband. I'm a father. I have 2 grandchildren. The needs, I keep getting more and more on the list every day. You know, so every morning
There you go.
I spend my quiet time, and I believe in the power of prayer. So that's
great.
another gift that God's given me, and I make myself available when I can, and hopefully, I mean, God's opening doors all the time, and
Absolutely.
so we just want to get the word out, and especially we're living in times that you know, you got to make that decision.
These are tough times.
These are serious times. Someone says, "Is this the end of the world?" I said, "No, but it's what's called the end of the age, and we're going to move into a whole different era of time, and we're going to go through some stuff. You know, trials and tribulations is the way we enter the kingdom of God." It says so. Better get ready and pull up your bootstraps. But I said the only way you're going to make it, you got to have faith. You know, if you don't have faith, you don't believe. Well,
sure,
you're going to find out. You know, just try it. Try it. You know. Ain't like Mikey that you'll just like it, but you'll see, because everyone has a story and has to have that experience. So there's 2 things I heard even this morning when we were at our church, and I'll leave it at this so what you know, if you ask somebody, I say, "Hey, Joe, what are you doing here, and who are you?" You know, you get all kind of answers. What are you doing here and in this world? And who are you? When it comes down to this, you're not nobody's an accident. God has a plan for everybody. And what we need to do is find out that plan, hopefully, and get connected and get involved and give back. And that's really, church is really community. You know, a lot of people say, "Well, I don't go to a church." They say, "Well, we are the church." Okay, it's not about the building, it's not about that name or that label, but it's what's in your heart. So search your heart. And if any way I can help, I'm here. Reach out to me, and you know, if you'd like to have a closing prayer, I'd just like to pray for the people who are listening.
Yes.
Can I do that?
Absolutely.
Let's do that.
Absolutely.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for my brother George, for that he is just reaching out in many ways with other people. But Father, that this was a time that you appointed, and Father, as people are listening, or maybe in the future go to YouTube, Father, that you'll just touch their hearts, their lives, and let them know you in a real way, that you're God who saves, delivers, and heals and redeems those who cry out that are lost. We all have needs, and Father, I just ask that you meet the needs of the people that are listening, that have family members. Maybe there's a loved one right now that they have incarcerated themselves, or they've been incarcerated, but they're going. You can be in a prison without going to prison. So, Father, you sent your Son to die for all of us, and just let people know you in a more intimate way, and know that you're real, and Father, that you'll also meet their needs. Father, I thank you for changing hearts and lives tonight. And whatever that need is, Father, I know that if people just say, Jesus, help me, it's that simple. You're there, Lord. You died for us, and you paid the price for all of us, for all of our sins, that we don't have to be lost in this world, and we don't have to do it alone. So I thank you, and I ask you bless each one tonight, and bless my friend here, George, and what he continues to do with this program. And it is a ministry in a way that he's reaching people, and people are listening. So I thank you, and I bless you, Father, and give you the praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you so much for that. Yes, thank you. And God bless you too. It was, again, a pleasure to have you on the show, Rocco, and all the best to you and your family. Upcoming Thanksgiving and the holidays, all that good stuff that's upcoming. And I wish you all the best, my friend. I really do.
You too, my friend. Thank you. All right.
All right.
Hope to see you again.
Hang right there. Don't run away on me.
I won't go.
Okay. Wow, that was great. And I'll tell you, this is a first on Buzz Talk Live. I never had a guest that's so well spoken and so true to his heart and the lives that he's touched in prisons and everywhere. You know, never had a closing prayer on Buzz Talk Live. It's amazing. But I wish him all the luck in the world with his upcoming feature film that he's producing or he's getting involved with there, and that should be a success. So join me again November 21st, Sunday, November 21st, with music director, film director, and Grammy Award nominated music producer Martine Gigi is going to be here on the show. So tune in again on the 21st for that show at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. That's all for the Buzz Talk Live show tonight, folks. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope you were, I hope you learned something, and listen to your mother. Because she's going to set you right. All right. Very good. Again, Rocco, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And thank you again for tuning in, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too.